G'day and welcome to Insights and Storytellings with me, Moon Willow. Very sorry for the brief hiatus we've had this week. I don't know about anybody else on here, but I am struggling to find motivation to do the things that I want to do. And it still feels very Myrish at the moment, and hibernatory, but that could also be due to the fact that I'm working nights quite a lot at the moment. But today I've sort of had a set of things I wanted to achieve and accomplish, and I've managed to do them, but linear time has run differently to to where I think I'm up to. But I do appreciate you bearing with me and contributing your energies when I do sit down to do these. So with that in mind, sorry, I was just thinking earlier today I did manage to get to the reserve and managed to put on my wellies again and really play in some very big puddles, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So, and then I managed to cook myself a meal from scratch this evening as well, which again I really enjoyed doing. So I think part of what's really key at the moment is remembering to be creative in our enjoyment and try and find those things that help make us smile and chuckle, just so that it helps the navigation of the world at large, and try not to get too sucked into the darkness and the underlying depths that seem to be really in play at the moment. So with that in mind, we'll see which crystal would like to come out and play, and we'll see what story comes out tonight as well. So tonight we've got citrine, so solar plexus, our energy source, and our power. And in thinking about that this evening, as it comes out, very much about ensuring our shields are up, because there is constant bombardment going off. For those, I know that I'm probably not the only one, but I sort of vaguely keep an eye on the Schumann resonance, which is looking at the energy that's bombarding the earth at the moment. And there has been a lot of recent activity, and that sort of can account for partly why we're feeling drained at the moment, because that energy does have a habit of really impacting our shields. So I do feel at the moment it's really important to ensure that our shields are up and are in working order, taking the time to really get a sense of, I know I've mentioned this in previous videos, but really getting a sense of where our boundaries lie and whether they're intact or not, because sometimes it's quite easy just to go about our daily business without really taking time to ensure that we haven't got any holes in our shields around us, in our protection. So that's where taking more than a few minutes to meditate or just closing our eyes and getting a sense of where our boundaries lie, and are people sort of crossing our boundaries at the same time? Are we finding that we're ending up in situations where we feel compromised, or we are feeling like we're losing extra energy, or that we're not able to speak our truth? It's really getting a sense of where we end and the rest of the world begins type thing. And there are times when the outer world can intrude a little closer than we really want it to, and certain words or certain situations can end up really hitting us in our solar plexus or in our sacral area, and really managing to get through, and can create an uncomfortable internal environment for us. And by not being aware of it, we could end up feeling more tired, or reacting or more irritable in certain situations that we would do normally. So it's in those, noticing that and really getting a sense of it, feeling into how that's managed to get through, how it's managed to trip us up internally, can end up creating sort of negative internal dialogue as well that doesn't actually belong to us. So really focusing on grounding and connecting into Earth, and helping or asking her to support us as we try and move forward, navigating sort of very strange times, holding our own internal belief systems without being too battered. And that can be tiring, and letting ourselves off the hook if we feel like just vegging out, because that is a way of recharging our batteries. But knowing that we have got the strength to navigate and negotiate the world around us remaining intact, that we have got that internal strength to strengthen our boundaries and our shields and our protections to keep us safe as we progress forward. It's a bit like making sure that we have the right equipment to go forward. It's like my walk today, I knew that there was most likely going to be very big puddles. So I got out my Wellingtons as opposed to my walking boots when I went for my walk, and that meant that my feet were protected, but I could still enjoy my walk and actually enjoy it more, because I could actually play completely knowing that my feet were going to stay dry. So it's almost like that, that ensuring our boundaries and our shields and our protections are fully engaged, fully activated, fully strengthened, that we can actually enjoy the way we navigate forward. We can actually play in that, and we can actually link into that higher energy and the higher vibration, so that we can actually move forward slightly easier without being quite so bombarded with everything around us. But again, it makes sense to just hang on for a little bit before rushing headlong into something, just to check. It's like before getting out of the car, or as I got out of the car, I had a moment to choose what footwear I was going to put on. So again, it's like going into situations knowing that we may be encountering difficult situations, or a situation that puts us at odds with how we actually view the world, how we feel authentic in ourselves. And by taking moment to take stock of how our shields are being powered, getting that extra energy from earth and from source to put that protection in, that we can actually navigate slightly easier as we go forward. I'm hoping this is making sense. So on that note, we'll see which cards come out at the same time to continue this story. And I'll split these. So the 3 cards tonight to continue the story is the Whip, the Lily, and the Sun. So the Whip is quarrels and arguments, and what I am finding in navigating this world is that there are more and more situations where I feel almost pressurized into having a disagreement or an argument with another, because their belief system is so diametrically opposed to my own. But I also know that it's not so much that I won't win the argument, because that's not what it's about. It's like seeing that it's there, seeing that somebody else has got a completely different opinion to me. And there are times when I can speak my truth and be really authentic and question their point of view and put across mine without feeling like I'm going to be condemned for it or going to end up having an unnecessary argument. And there are other times when I just can feel and sense that if I speak my truth or my belief, or even question theirs, that would create a disagreement that not only would be uncomfortable but unnecessary, really, because I don't feel it needs to be about changing other people's minds. It's good to be able to explore different points of view with someone who's open-minded, but if that other person's quite closed-minded, in my lexicon, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, there isn't a point in entering into that dialogue. So it's just a case of allowing them to speak and being non-committal with my responses. I just find that easier sometimes. But I do wonder then if I'm shutting off a possibility of actually exploring different outcomes. But it's almost like if you've got your shields up and your boundaries and have a clear sense of what's right for yourself, and you can feel the other's energy at the edges, you can actually decide pretty much before you have that conversation or enter into a dialogue that conversation is only going to end up in a disagreement, and that's not actually going to be helpful to anybody, I don't feel, anyway. But at the same time, what else is also coming through is that there is this increased push on the main stage in mainline media and on different other media platforms, that there is a push for, from my opinion, going completely the wrong way. And watching those can actually sometimes produce a response in me where I want to become argumentative with it, to the point the other night Someone wanted to put the news on where I was working, and I asked them not to, because I just had a sense that if I saw any of it, that I would literally like to throw the telly through the window, which I didn't feel was particularly appropriate at that time. So I think that's what this is saying, is that just be aware that there will be more and more situations that may induce or create that feeling and need to argue, to have a disagreement. And I also feel that that's sort of also coming in from sort of like family aspect, people that probably known you for years. It's becoming increasingly difficult to walk a neutral ground in those particular relationships, because it's almost like sometimes it feels like I feel that I'm being a bit disingenuous in not being able to speak my truth completely with certain people, because I've known them all my life, and I feel like I should be able, and there's a should, which is an interject, but I feel like I would like to be able to be completely authentic and speak my truth. Unfortunately, I know that these other individuals hold, as I say, a diametrically opposed opinion to me, and I am unable to find a middle ground. And I think that's where this card's coming in, is that there are times when holding a middle ground is not enough. Being able to speak your truth is where, which would be really good, but sometimes it doesn't feel like it's that simple. On the other hand, I feel like we are increasingly going into spaces and areas that the world is moving in such a way that by not saying something, by not questioning, that we're almost becoming complicit with the world situation, and that in a way is just as bad, if not worse, as just following blindly. So it's having that energy and that strength, that inner strength, which I believe we have, to navigate and negotiate quarrels and disagreements in different situations, to hold our own truth, to hold our authentic self. So that leads me into, and it feels like the world is fast coming into an area where arguments and having disagreements and being on almost two sides, two opposing opinions, it's becoming more and more important to have those discussions, but have them as a discussion as opposed to a quarrel, or having it emotion led. It's almost, and that's where the solar comes in as well. It's solar tends to be more masculine, tends to be a little bit more logical, and there is a strength, and realizing that we have the strength to actually hold on to our convictions and being able to speak it, but speak it in a way that doesn't entice an argument, doesn't entice a disagreement, but actually I hope that we're able to sort of have opposing views and be able to discuss them as adults, without going into sort of like child bickering. Who knows? It's part of what I'd like to see happen anyway. So the next card is the Lily, and health. Health is coming through for this. So one of the things with quarrels and arguments is that that can dilute our strength, our emotional health. It can have a huge consequence on our emotional health. It can be quite draining, and if we're using a lot of extra energy to quell or quash what we'd like to be able to say, honestly, that can actually stress our immune system and can become really tiring. And then the other side of that is that it's almost like this unconditional pressure, this unconditional idea that we can just continue pushing and pushing and pushing without having any reaction or response to it. And some of that as well for me is at the moment of this complete isolation as well, and not being able to have human contact on a physical level. And I feel like it's really important to be able to. There's a lot of sayings that no man is an island, and I actually sort of didn't fully comprehend that until this past year, where we haven't been able to have that physical touch as much as we used to be able to. So I can really feel and see that it is very important to have that for our emotional well-being. So it's a case of, within this card and linking into our solar plexus, is reaching out to other people, that just ensuring that we're not lonely or not isolated, that we can actually reach out to others that are like-minded, and that contact is such that we can be authentic and not lose a part of ourselves, or not squash a part of ourselves when we're in conversation or in relationship with another. That actually it is a mutual one that can actually support us in moving forward, and one that we can actually be heard in and experienced fully in, without fear of ending up in an argument, because that can actually be quite stressful. And the other side of the arguments and quarrels is sort of like an increase in stress and anxiety as well, especially if we're having an argument with someone that we really love or care for. If we're at odds with them, that can actually put extra stress on us. We could actually feel quite afraid that we're going to lose contact with them, even though that might actually be more beneficial for us in the long run. Living in fear and stress actually puts an incredible drain on our emotional health and our physical health. Also looking at, because the previous YouTube video that I uploaded was around our throat, and looking at the types of food that we may be utilising to emotionally compensate for not being able to say what we want to say, or literally stuffing our mouths with food to prevent us from talking or expressing exactly how we feel. And that can have a negative consequence on us from a physiological point of view, that we're not actually accessing the right nutrients, being really aware of the types of food that we are eating and the fluids that we are drinking, just to maintain our physiological health, but also not giving ourselves a hard time if we choose to eat or end up eating comfort food, because there will be a reason for comfort food on an emotional level. And if we make sure that it's not too much, that we're not putting our immune system or our physiological system under too much stress by what we're eating. It's making sure that we're not criticising ourselves too much about the types of food, because then that could actually have a negative impact on us, and emotionally and spiritually as well. But it's also very important to take our walks and get out of the house, trying to follow a good practice of meditating, which I must admit I am not very good at. Although I do get a great deal of benefit from doing so, it's one of those things, and looking at how we may be self-sabotaging at the moment, how we may be using our power against us, or encouraged not to acknowledge our power as well. And strength. We have all got an internal strength that we can draw on, but if we end up in too many situations where we feel like we may lose somebody, we could end up using our strength against us. I don't know whether that makes sense. So the last card is the Sun. So I feel that it's an acknowledgement that although what we're going through at the moment is hellish, from my point of view, it feels quite hellish and feels very frustrating that things are coming up to the surface, and there's a part of me that wants to shout and scream at people that why aren't you seeing it? It seems to me, looks and feels quite obvious, where it may not be. It's almost like some of us have been aware of things that have been going off underneath the surface for a long, long time, and as others catch up or don't see it, it's hard not to end up in a quarrel with them. And by biting your tongue and holding back, that can have an impact on our health and emotional well-being. But the Sun in this for me is reminding me that by continuing to walk, continuing to find those play times of the wellies in the water, and holding up a light, holding up an internal light with our own strength, that we will be able to actually get through this time. But it helps me to know that things like the Schumann resonance, which shows that our planet and consequently our shields are being battered by an external source beyond anything that's on this planet, actually helps me feel more in control, helps me feel that there is a reason for it. It's not just me being silly. It's not down to me, that there are actually other larger forces at work, and that it's a good day if we've managed to actually get up, potter around and go back to bed, that we actually have empathy for ourselves and compassion for ourselves, that we are doing what we can do through these circumstances and situations which actually are really difficult at the moment, and giving ourselves permission to have those down times, even if it's like 2 or 3 days where we don't get dressed, that's okay, because that's what we need to actually cope and soothe ourselves. But it is important to be a part of the larger world at the same time. And for me, that's actually having my connections, walking around the reserve, seeing all the birds, watching the sun over the water, really having a conversation with the trees, just really, really connecting into all aspects of the earth, and recognizing that this is a really difficult time, and there is only so much that we can actually control within that, and that's okay. But pottering forward and finding our authenticity, finding our joy, finding our authentic self, finding our internal strength and anchoring into earth will help us find our own internal light that then can be used to shine out so that we can see the path ahead, so we can actually see through the water as we navigate our way forward. And just holding on to our inner strength, which is very strong, and we have the ability to generate a lot of power and using that power to know where our shields and our boundaries are, where we can say no more, enough is enough. I'm not participating in that. I'm actually going to walk in a different direction, and be completely okay with that, knowing that we have the ability to do that, that we have free will, we have the choice to navigate these strange times. So I'm hoping this makes sense, and I'm hoping this is complete enough, but I'm going to stop here. Yeah, it is very important to recognize that we do have our internal furnace and our internal strength, and we are able to hold on to who we are. No matter what the arguments may occur around us that we don't have to enter into, we can actually choose to walk away, holding our integrity, holding our internal self, and keeping healthy through that. Healthy of mind, healthy of body, healthy of soul, and to remain healthy in that. It is okay to get that extra sleep. It is okay to switch off from what's going off outside and huddle inwards for a while, but ensuring that we do still connect with the external world, that even if we don't connect with other two-leggeds, that actually connecting with earth underneath our feet, the birds, four-leggeds, fish in the sea, sunsets, sunrises, noticing actually what's going off in a weather-wise, and being present is really important at the moment. And that actually, as more truths are brought to light with the sun, it's actually seeing our beacon, our internal light, our internal strength, and having that hope and joy, even in the darkest of times, will help shed light on the path that we're walking and moving forward. And I really feel that everything will be all right. I don't know when, and I'm not entirely sure how. I just know that we will come out of this stronger and better, and hopefully more compassionate and loving to ourselves and each other. So I'm going to see what sound comes through for us today. Thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm not entirely sure when I'll be drawn to do another one of these. I'm hoping tomorrow, because I actually enjoy putting these out. But like everybody else, I am feeling the energies at the moment, and it is a little bit of a struggle to actually do stuff at the minute, I find. But once we do things, I do find that the feeling of actually achievement is really worthwhile pushing to accomplish it. So anyway, take care of yourselves. Love you all. Bye for now.